You are listening to the She Free Thinks podcast, where women have courageous conversations, speak their truth, tell their stories, and keep it real. I am your host, Coach Kat, and I help women unpack their shit, refill, and walk it out. It is my hope that this podcast will inspire you to show up for yourself, put on your big girl panties, own the fuck out of your life, and write your own narrative. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to another episode of the She Free Thinks podcast. I am your host, Coach Kat, and I help women get healthier, fitter, and stronger. I am super excited to have Hope Marshall as a guest of the She Free Thinks podcast. Y'all, I have met and connected with so many phenomenal women on social media. And Hope is one of those phenomenal women that I've connected with. She is just a ray of sunshine. She is authentic as fuck. And I'm glad to have her as a guest. Hey, Hope.
Hello.
How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing fabulous.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. I'm excited. I mean, I love our discussion because, you know, that's dear to my heart. But before we jump into our topic of discussion, please share with us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So, as you said, my name is Hope Marshall. And a little bit about me. Let's see. I'm an only child. I'm the daughter of Caribbean immigrants. My mom came to the country in 1973 from a little island in the Caribbean called Barbados. And so I grew up, eating plantain and dancing to soca and all of that stuff. So that's like really a big part of who I am. I consider myself a late bloomer. I really feel like I didn't catch my stride, so to speak, until later on in life. I feel like I'm in my third quarter. I like to refer to, my life as like in quarters. So I feel like my first and second quarter, they were a little rough. I have to admit that. But I feel like I am a woman who is in her second act, and I'm just really committed to making up for lost time and, finding the things that I thought I wasn't good enough or smart enough or just wasn't confident enough to do. I'd say I'm a bit of a witty wordsmith. I'm fit-ish. So, I don't have the muscle definition I would like, but, I started getting more fit as I hit my 40s, and I really enjoy it. It's such a metaphor for life and, just keeping those promises to yourself, showing up for yourself, every day. I recently started traveling a little bit more. And so just making an intentional effort to go places. Before that, I was kind of like an accidental traveler. I would just kind of wind up places because people would invite me. And I guess my day job is I work in learning and development, which is kind of like an offshoot of HR. So doing anything from putting together training events to facilitating training, anything within that realm, that's what I do. I'm also a freelance proofreader and copy editor and a freelance instructional designer and facilitator. And that business is suchaway.com. And, it all kind of ties in together because when I'm developing training material, they're still is in, a lot of copy editing, a lot of proofreading and tweaking and, just making it sound, just so. So, yeah, I'm just enjoying discovering new things about myself. You know how you go into an attic and you kind of open up a box and then you just kind of sit there on the floor, just pulling everything out. And you're like, oh, look at this. This is kind of cool. Or, something else may strike up a memory and you're sitting there smiling, in reverence. That's kind of how I'm discovering myself now. So, yeah, I think that's it. I covered the high points.
Wow, I call that discovering your gold. Yes, I love it. That is awesome. Well, Hope, I love that you said you are in the third quarter of your life. Is that correct?
Yes, I really feel like I am like a woman in her third quarter, you know, just taking and not even that I didn't take myself seriously, but I felt like a large part of my life was spent on autopilot and just sort of following the script of what society says, they, them, the Joneses, what they say you should do. So I was kind of on autopilot a little bit because I guess I didn't even know I had permission to choose something else, to want to do something else. And so, that's why I kind of call it third quarter, because it's like now I'm going to do what I want to do, what's best for me. And, I'm sorry if you don't like it, but you'll get over it.
I definitely can relate to what you said. I followed a script and it was so hard because I always knew that there was just so much more to me. And society, you know, makes us think that we have to follow that script. But, so many times I wandered on my own path, but, society will try to whip you back into shape.
Yes.
And I can relate to feeling like, you're on autopilot and sometimes that your life doesn't even belong to you. Um, but that the beauty of saying, fuck this shit. I am going to follow my intuition, listen to my intuition, and I'm going to tap into my authenticity. And I'm going to live my life and I'm going to make an effort to live it as intentionally as I possibly can. And I also think that that is the beauty of aging gracefully. You start saying, fuck this shit.
That is so true.
You can relate. So yeah, you just like, you know what? You start looking at your life and taking inventory. And as you said, you're unpacking. You go and you pull out the box that's filled with so much gold, and during the process you are taking the stuff out that has hidden the gold, and you are rediscovering that gold. And sometimes for some of us, we are finding gold that we didn't know existed. And so I just think that that is a beautiful journey, a beautiful transformation, and a beautiful way of us coming into our own, and knowing that we have the right to live authentically and be true to who we are. So, sis, like I said earlier, honey, I am fittish too. I make no claims to, that I am in, the perfect shape or that I'm the fittest person. But fitness for me is more than how I look. It's mental and emotional fitness and well-being. And we're going to discuss, what led you to start taking your fitness more seriously. Share with us what happened, what transpired in your life.
Um, well, it was like a couple of things. I had just recently ended a career in nonprofit. I had worked in nonprofit for 9 years, and I had convinced myself that I was doing, I was working for the people, and as a way to justify not really making a lot of money. And before I knew it, I looked up and I was like 39, and I really didn't have a whole lot of I in my mind, I didn't really have a lot to show for it. Like my life was just kind of like a blur. And so I made a concentrated effort to get myself into another, field of work, into learning and development. And, I just kind of sat down, rewrote my resume, and, put myself on that path. And, so then I started making more money because I got a better job. And, I was looking for different ways to invest in myself. So I started, I had a Massage Envy membership. So I would get monthly massages. And I was like, okay, I could I was always a casual exerciser. So I would walk and I would do like videos and things like that. Cause again, I was always looking for the discount because I didn't make a lot of money. So I was like, well, I'm just going to pop in a DVD and just do an exercise in the living room. But, I was like, hey, I'm worth the investment. So, um, where I had moved to, and then I also moved, and it was also around the time where the Baltimore riots happened. And, I cried about that because I was just like, what the hell is going on? And then I also was in that year too, my car had got broken into twice after all these years of having that car, and not even so much as anything happening, it gets broken into. And it's almost like the universe was kind of like, okay, since you don't know how to take action, I'm just going to make things so unbearable for you that you're going to have to do something different. And that's exactly, what happened. So then I took a guest class at Orange Theory Fitness, because your first class is free, right? That's how they get you. And I like the concept of it, and it's been the only thing so far that I have stuck with. I tried hot yoga, I tried working with a personal trainer. I took Zumba at some point, but never really stuck except this. And I think it sticks because it's kind of like a metaphor for life, because you actually have to go into the app, schedule your own classes. You get to pick what area you want to start on. So you could start on the treadmill. You can begin your workout on the treadmill, the rower, or on the floor. You can do the floor exercises. And there's somebody there kind of walking around telling you when to move to the next station, when to move to the next exercise. So there's some things that I can motivate myself through, but then there are other things that, I realize that I have to have somebody there holding me accountable. And that's one of those things. And, like I said, it's kind of like a metaphor for life, because in a sense you're competing with yourself, because you wear a fitness tracker and your numbers are up on the board. So at any given time, no matter where you are in the class, you can look on the digital board, the output, and see what fitness zone you're in, what your heart rate is, what your how many splat points you have. And you're sort of competing with yourself, because if you know that, okay, usually on these classes I burn X amount of calories. So I know if I haven't burned X amount of calories within this time frame, I'm not going to make my personal goal. So you're always, you know, trying to compete with your previous numbers, your previous self. And, it requires a lot of discipline. I actually have to walk to the class. It's like a point 6 miles away from me. So there's a lot of mental, focus that goes into the preparation. And it's kind of like that's how life is. You kind of have to show up and schedule things and create things, systems and different things that work for you that will keep you engaged and motivated. So yeah, that's how I got into that. And then I ran my first 5K obstacle course in 2019, just from all the work I had done with Orange Theory. I had the stamina and the lower body strength and the upper body strength to kind of go through, the obstacles. It was this course called the Rugged Maniac. And I actually got a medal and, had the pictures and all that stuff. So, I look at my medal and I'm like, hey, if I can do that, I can do something else. So.
Okay, that is awesome. So you found what works for you. And after trying many things, you've you've discovered that fitness routine that is working for you, that you enjoy, and that's making you happy and fitter and stronger.
Yeah, it does. It really makes me happy. And, it's weird because I'll be so engaged that I remember I was in a class once and I felt like I was dragging that particular day. And it was a lady next to me on the treadmill. I can kind of see her in my periphery. And come to find out, she was the mother of the coach that was teaching the class that day. And she came up to me and said that her mother was like, man, that lady, she was going. And I'm like, really? Me? I felt like I was dragging ass up in there for that, on that particular day. But, you know,
Wow. What benefits besides the physical benefits of working out have you experienced in your life? How has it impacted your career, your relationships, and just your general outlook on life?
um, you know, it's such a ripple effect because, as I had mentioned before, I worked and I wasn't really making a lot of money. And then when I finally, started making a little bit more, I could invest in myself. So it's almost like, it changes your self-esteem, because it's like, I'm worth it. I'm paying this monthly fee, and I'm keeping this promise to myself. I can do this, and then when you get on your good momentum, because I have a pretty good momentum, I go about 3 times a week, because it's high intensity interval training. So I don't, and it's pretty hard on the body. So I'm like, all right, I don't need to be up in there, you know, more than 3 or 4 times a week. And, so I got a good routine going with that. And, it's great for mental health. And, I'm not as anxious as I used to be. I'm not as like um such a ball of nerves as I used to be. Um and I'm kind of again going back to what I had said before. There's always room to push yourself a little bit more. And that's kind of how life is. There's always, yeah, you could be doing, you're in a good groove, but there's always a little bit of space to do just a little bit better. You don't have to change, the world, but there's always like that wiggle room to do just a little bit more. And it serves as a reference point, because you can tell yourself, okay, well, if I can stick to this and if I can do this, it builds your confidence. So then if there's another endeavor that you want to partake in, like maybe you want to move to and take a different job, or you want to write that book, or whatever it is, you might say, well, okay, well, you did this and you stuck to it, so that means you have the capacity to do that other thing. So I think that's aside from the physical, there's the mental health aspect, there's the confidence aspect, there's you keeping the promises to yourself and showing up for yourself and just proving to yourself every day, like, hey, I can do, if I make a concentrated effort, I can do most things, and that's pretty much my attitude. I'm just kind of like, well, I'll take a crack at it. We'll see, you know.
Okay. How has it been getting fit over 40?
Um, you know, because I often used to wish I was that, because I'll see women, because I follow a lot of fitness women on Instagram, and they'll have like really defined like muscles and six packs, and and I find myself like, oh, I wish I looked like that. But then it's like, well, she has a totally different body type than me. She's probably 20 years younger than me. And it's a little bit harder because your stamina is not as it was when you were 25, and that's okay. That's okay. You just have to be more mindful in terms of like what you eat. You really can't be out here eating the McDonald's and stuff like that, garbage every day, maybe once in a while. So when you put so much effort in one area, if you're going to put all this effort into going to the gym and doing these classes an hour 3 times a week, it's almost like it's all for naught if you don't also eat well. So I cook more, as a because of the exercise. And it's like, well, I actually will prepare, more meals for myself. I'll cook, sometimes two or 3 times a week, depending on when my home chef deliveries come in. And just being more mindful, like getting outside, taking my supplements, my vitamins, because now it turns into, it's not just about looking beautiful and looking nice in a bathing suit, looking good naked. It's about, I don't want to be a creaky old lady. Like, I don't want to be sickly and I have to use a walker and all this other stuff when I'm like 50, 60, 70 years old. It's about preparing a quality of life for now and also for my fourth quarter.
I can definitely say that getting fit at over 40 is it's exhilarating, and it can also be challenging. And I can relate to not being as strong as I used to when I was younger, and working out and being in this fitness world and fitness community. I know you touched on some things a little earlier about how fitness makes you a better person in essence, and how it resonates. I mean, you have that confidence, you're feeling good about yourself, and it's not just this, I feel good because I look good. It's, I feel good because I look good, and I feel good because this has impacted my mental health. And share with us about your mental health. How has exercise impacted your mental health and well-being?
Oh, it has been like a 180. So I have always, prior to like really exercising, I was an anxious child, an anxious adult. I always had like a low grade melancholy. I wouldn't even call it like a full on depression, but I always had a, what the old folks call bad nerves. Um, and I just couldn't, no matter how well things were going in life, I just always had like that, almost like I said, a low grade melancholy. It was just kind of there, almost like I called it the party guest that's nobody invited, but they're sitting over there on the couch. Nobody else can see the guest except you, and they're just kind of looking at you. That's how it kind of manifested in my life. And once got myself on a really good regimen, I just noticed like it's a natural like mood enhancer, things. And a lot of the reason why I was so anxious is because I was just overthinking a lot of stuff, because I had too much time on my hands. And I didn't have like a fitness anything else, and I didn't want to do like the whole medication thing because I didn't think it was that intense. I did work in the mental health field for a number of years, and I've really seen some really profound, mental illness. So I was like, well, I'm not there. So I don't know if I need to go, to the whole like medication and stuff. Um, but it really taught me just how to manage, my own feelings of anxiety, and how to manage, there's certain things that, I can't do. Um, I don't really like large crowds. And it's just some stuff. It's like, well, that's not for you, and you have to be okay, okay with that. So I don't really like concerts. I don't like being around people who are like real loud. They talk real loud. They're just drawing all this attention to everything. That makes me nervous. So it has really helped me manage, and just kind of accept like, okay, well, this is your temperament, and that's okay. These are just different. You just have to take different steps to take care of yourself, and that's perfectly fine. So this is just my step, to take care of myself. And I noticed that if I skip a week, if I go more than a week, I don't feel, I feel kind of out of sorts. So even when I go on vacation, if I can't get in a gym at the hotel, I'll have like little routine I do in my room before I go out. So
I know you've heard me talk about being diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm also glad that you brought up that you shared your story of being anxious and um, semi-depressed. And I appreciate that candor, you being, being open about that, because as women and women of color, I don't think we realize how much shit we are actually carrying and dealing with. And I know for certain that fitness has been a lifesaver for me. When I started my fitness journey years ago, I really started out of self-hate, picking myself apart. I'm young. I just, feel like I'm not good enough. I'm not fine enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. However, over time, I realized that, oh my gosh, when I exercise, I feel good. I can think clearly. My creative juices, start turning. It's just like my whole world is just absolutely amazing. And I had no idea until later in life and being diagnosed with ADHD that it was actually helping my symptoms of ADHD. And I think, not think, I know that fitness in my life is far more than how I look outwardly. It is so much more about how I feel inside and how it helps me with my mental health and well-being. And I wish that is one of the things that I am trying to do, is normalize fitness, the mental health benefits of fitness, how it can really improve one's mental health and well-being. And instead of just getting caught up and being caught up in, I'm just doing this because I want to look good. I mean, it's okay to want to look good. I want to look good too. I'm not saying that anything is wrong with that, but just knowing that there is so much more to being active and partaking in physical activity. Do you have anything else you want to add to what I just said?
yeah, you're spot on, because um it there's this quote, and it's how you do one thing is how you do everything. And a lot of times we think change and self improvement has to be this grand thing, when sometimes all it has to be is one little tweak, that you do in your life, and you'll notice that ripple effect. You'll notice that other areas of your life start improving, so not just the physical, but maybe your finances improve a little bit, because once you start engaging in that one thing and you get your groove and you get your stride in that, you'll feel compelled to want to improve on other stuff. So you may say, hey, let me get my finances in order. Then you might say, hey, these clothes don't fit anymore. So, now I need to make a Goodwill run, or that might be, another business venture, because you start putting stuff on Poshmark, um, it just, it opens the door for so many other things. And like they say, how you do one thing is how you do everything, and if you can keep that, it's almost like keeping a promise to yourself, you know, and always having that reference point of, when you're feeling down or you feel like you want to give up on yourself, you just refer back to, well, you did bench press 50 pounds, or
Yes.
you know, you did run fast on the treadmill today, so you can do it, you know.
Yes, that I love that. Like, hey, remember you just you bench pressed or hunted those squats was spot on. Your form and technique was awesome. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that. What
Yep.
would you tell women 40 and over who have never really been into exercise? They might have tried and it fizzled out. And they're like, you know what, I just can't do this. My schedule is too busy. I have too much to do. I have to go do this. I have to go do that. What would you tell them? What would you encourage them to do to start a health and wellness journey?
Start walking, and keep a schedule. Decide, what, I'm going to walk for 20 minutes, or for 15 minutes, for three times a week, for the month, for 1 month, and then I'll check back in with myself and see what I want to do next. And don't and listen to your body. Everybody cannot do yoga. Everybody can't do, hot yoga and bend themselves into those positions. Everybody can't dance. Everybody is not a runner. Everybody is not a cycler, a roller skater. You have to find something where it doesn't feel like you're punishing yourself. You actually, the time goes by quickly. Like, you look up and you don't realize an hour has gone by, and sometimes walking is the easiest to do, because you just lace up the sneakers and go for it. Find yourself a nice path and say, okay, I'm going to be out here. I'm just going to do 10 minutes or 15 minutes and then go back in the house, and then you might say, oh, okay, well, I did that. Well, now let me increase it to 4 times a week, then 5, and also take advantage of those free trials, when gyms and stuff and these places have these free classes. Try them all. Do some of those Groupons where they have free trial memberships and stuff like that, so you can find something that you like, that that you can stick with, that works with your schedule. you know That's how you'll find something, because everybody can't do Orange Theory. you know some people are like, it's too hard. um but like me, for instance, I'm not a roller skater. I don't have As I've gotten older, I don't really have good upper body balance. So I always feel like I'm going to fall over. So roller skating, riding a bike, none of those things work for me. I'm not a runner. I don't like running, you know. So don't beat yourself up if you don't love those things. You just find something that you could at least do 2 to 3 times a week for 30 minutes or more.
That's great advice. What would you say to women who are just determined to say they just don't have the time? They can't squeeze 15, 20 minutes, or even 10 minutes into their day of exercising. What would you tell them?
YouTube. Go on YouTube and do something right where you are. Let's say you're at work, you physically go to work, and you have a lunch break. So you can say, I'm going to do something at my desk I'm gonna have some weights and things under my desk, and I'll do, my weights while I'm on my lunch break, or I'm just gonna take about 15 minutes to eat, and then if let's say you get an hour for lunch, and then I'll take the rest of the time to do a little bit of exercise. Because your phone, everybody's got a smartphone. You've got those fitness apps. If you don't want to do the fitness apps, there are tons of YouTube channels that have really short 10-15 minute exercise regimens that you can do, but just the main thing is get moving, you know, because as we age and things, that's how older people, they get hurt, because they get stiff and they break a hip or they break their arm or something like that, and that's from not really moving that much. So just kind of start small and look at it as, okay, I just need to move, I need to get moving. Again, don't put too much pressure to get out there and try to do a 5K and you haven't exercised in 3 years. You're going to get discouraged. You're going to say, oh, well, I can't do this. Of course, you can't do that. Eventually you'll be able to, but you don't want to do that out the gate, you know.
Thank you. Right. You've said a few times about enjoying what you do and not putting a lot of pressure on yourself, not trying to push yourself too hard, or because you'll overdo it and burn yourself out, get frustrated and say fuck it. And I do want to touch on the importance of enjoying the physical fitness that you're doing, the exercises that you're doing, and why that is so important. What would you say? Why is it so important to enjoy what you're doing?
Because you don't want it to feel like a punishment. You don't want to feel like, oh, I'm beating up my body. And you have to drag yourself to go there every time. If you find something, you enjoy, you'll, because there's where discipline starts, and like in intrinsic like motivation begins, where you're just naturally like, oh, it's Thursday, I know I need to go, to my class. But if it's something that you don't like and you're dreading to go, you're going to burn up so much energy trying to talk yourself into doing it. Whereas if you really enjoy it, you're like, oh, today is the day, let me get my stuff, let me get my fitness gear on and get going, so it's a lot easier to stay engaged for the long term. I kind of, I shy away from like those fitness fads. They have like different fads and stuff like that. I always say, like, stick with the basics, because those fads come and go, and more a lot of times people can't stick with them, because they're not seeing any results, or it comes out that, oh, it's not right, or something like that. So you're more likely to stay engaged and keep doing it if you like it, if you enjoy it, versus, oh, I gotta run, I really don't want to go. You may stick with it for a couple of weeks, and then the shoes are just hanging there in the corner. So
Right. You're like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm done.
exactly.
Oh, wow. This has been great. I have really enjoyed this conversation. And before we end it, just leave our listeners with a few words of encouragement and also let our listeners know how they can connect with you.
Okay, if I can leave your listeners with anything, I would say two things. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Um, and that translates to so much, because a lot of times people think that they can compartmentalize their life and they can slack off in one area of life and it won't bleed over to other areas, and that's not true, so again, how you do one thing is how you do everything, so you have to be mindful. And on the flip side, that can be positive too, because if you're engaged and disciplined and you show up for yourself each time with exercise, that too will bleed over into other areas of your life. So, and then the other thing is, the only person you should try to be better than is the person you were yesterday. When it comes to fitness, like I'm pear shaped, I have like kind of broad shoulders, like swimmer's shoulders. Um, and I'm a little bit round with, in the hip area and stuff. And I'm not like skinny in terms of like my thighs. So I'll look at some women's body type and it's like, oh, well, I wish I had abs like her. It's like, well, she has a different body type. You're not even shaped like her. So trying to look at what other people are doing and using that as a reference point, that's generally not a good idea. You are your own reference point, so if, again with Orange Theory, if I know how many calories I'm supposed to burn, that I usually burn each class. And so when I start my class, I think about what I burned during the last class, and I see if and I try to see if I can exceed it. Even if it's just by 5 calories. You know, I'm not competing with the lady on the treadmill next to me. I'm not looking at what anybody else is doing because they are on their own journey. You know, but I know why I'm there, and I know what I need to be doing, and you just stay in your lane, and you are your own competition, you are your own reference point.
I love it. You are your own competition and you are your own reference point. That's great. Let our listeners know how they can connect with you.
All right, so as I had mentioned earlier, I offer freelance proofreading and copy editing services, and that is suchawaywithwords.com. Such a Way with Words is all one word. Suchawaywithwords.com.
Thank you, Hope. It has been a pleasure. I have enjoyed this conversation. I look forward to having you back. And hey, keep showing up for yourself and doing what you're doing. And it's amazing. Thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode of the She Free Thinks podcast. This is Coach Kat. Bye.